Hello, I'm Charles Moffat, and it is book review time again. So, if you've seen my previous reviews of The Dragonbone Chair and The Stone of Farewell by Tad Williams, which is books 1 and 2 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, then you know that it's not really a trilogy. Because books 3 and 4 of the series are, technically it's supposed to be like one big book, but it's so big that they had to split it into part 1 and part 2. It really is a case of they just, I don't know, it ended up being too big. And these things happen sometimes. So, but they still marketed it as a trilogy for some silly reason. So, even though it's 4 books. And for context purposes, this one's like 760 pages. This one's like 726 pages around there. 766 around there. 726. And then these two are both 800 pages. And you can tell just looking at the them, side to side that they're significantly thicker. Anyway, and then just because this is going to come up, if you look at the covers, these two covers seem to match, and it's because they're the mirror images of each other, as far as that goes. Basically, like, part 2 has its cover on the back of that. It's just like one big image that's just been, it's just been reversed. Okay? Yeah. And you're just left like, okay, so are these people left-handed? What's going on here? Well, no. Definitely right-handed there. Yeah, okay. But when you look at this version, here he's left-handed. Anyway, whatever. Now, this is going to be a book review of both part 1 and part 2 of Two Green Angel Tower. So, Green Angel Tower is a significant place that, where the story starts back in the Dragonbone Chair. This is not a spoiler. You find out basically in the first, little tiny bit. Anyway, it's very obvious, Green Angel Tower is a very important place. It's part of the Hayholt Castle, which is kind of like this super old castle similar to Gormenghast. And if you haven't read Gormenghast, or the Gormenghast trilogy, you should go do that. And you should read books 1 and 2. Skip book 3. Don't bother with book 3. Books 1 and 2 are basically self-contained. You don't need to read book 3 at all. It's completely separate. Alright, so let's start with this one. So, yeah. A good chunk of this book is just the one character trying to get to this one location, which oddly enough is not Green Angel Tower. And then there's also like a huge battle that goes on, and very sad. These are not spoilers necessarily. It's kind of implied. You're going to have large battles in these books. It's just, these are effectively epic fantasy. And this particular series is very much like Game of Thrones, and that's not a spoiler. It's because Game of Thrones is based off of these books. Much in the same way that these books are based off Gormenghast and The Lord of the Rings. So, if you like those two things, Lord of the Rings or Gormenghast, or both, you should probably be reading these. And if you like Game of Thrones and you actually want to find out how Game of Thrones is supposed to end, read the books. These books. Don't bother with George R. R. Martin's books because he hasn't finished writing them. And he is taking his sweet time about it. So, yeah. I really enjoyed these books. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I really enjoyed finally finding out the ending to Game of Thrones. And, it's not a complicated map as far as maps go. But, if I recall correctly, if you go through different parts of the book, there's like little blow-up versions of like specific regions. So you can like, I'm looking for it here, one second. These books are so big, they probably should have been split in half again. So it would have been like 4 books. There we go, where it says it's part 2. There you go. The Winding Road. Okay, so there you go. See what I mean? So a good chunk of this part of the book ends up taking place in this area. And then this area. Yeah. Not necessarily spoilers in that case. It's just a case of there's a lot of traveling going on. And To Green Angel Tower suggests that this is effectively a journey. Now, when you get to this book, it is a continuation, but it's also like, you know, there's a solid ending here as far as that one goes. And then you're just left wondering what's going to happen next, because, you know, it's not finished. So this one, finally, they are going to Green Angel Tower itself. This book, yeah, the one character spent a good time just trying to get towards something else. Anyway, this time they're finally going to Green Angel Tower itself, which, you know, shown there. And all sorts of things are converging on Green Angel Tower, as far as that goes. So you have these characters, and then you have Simon, and Miriamel, and various other characters. And they all seem to converge on Green Angel Tower. It's just, everybody's heading there. Everybody and their dog, apparently. But, you know what? It's still enjoyable. And it's just, honestly, it's just such a fulfilling, wonderful story. But at the same time, you get a sense of theme, like a repetition with a lot of these books. And the thing that I'm going to talk about, and this is not a spoiler again, is the issue of bad guys. Okay? Now, if you read The Lord of the Rings, one of the bad guys that shows up basically is these riders in black. The ring wraiths that they're called in the Lord of the Rings. And then if you read the Chronicles of Prydain, there's also riders that show up in that story. Or series of books, I should say, the Chronicles of Prydain. So there's those riders, and the ring wraiths in Lord of the Rings, and then in this one, there's also riders of a similar sort. You don't see them in these ones, but particularly this book, they start to show up. Although they are probably briefly mentioned in some of the other books. And in the Chronicles of Prydain, you get the same sort of thing. And then also in the Witcher series, there's also a group of riders known as the Wild Hunt. And this idea of this like group of, you know, almost supernatural riders, you know, doing evil and going from place to place, and they, you know, usually ended up chasing after the good characters. So you see them in the Lord of the Rings, you see them in the Chronicles of Prydain, you see them in this series, mostly this one. They start to pop up a little bit. You see them in Game of Thrones in terms of the what are they called? Not the Whites, the White Walkers. The White Walkers. Yeah, those ones. Yeah, so they're up there on their horses and they're following the Night King. Well, in these books, it's called the Storm King. So there you go. Very, very similar. And so I find it interesting that this is like a thing that just like, you know, it's repeated in many different books. This idea of like the evil riders, these supernatural riders. And even sometimes you'll find it in music. So if you look at the one song by Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash, it's called Ghost Riders in the Sky. Same idea, okay? So, yeah. But if you like this idea of like supernatural evil guys like chasing the good guys, Yeah, something else to enjoy about these books. Now, is it a really big book? Yes, they are. Like if you add them up, it's like 800 plus 800 plus another 1,590. So almost 1,600 words. So almost 3,200 pages. 3,100 pages, thereabouts. Yeah, it's this is a long series, but at least it ends. Okay, you get to see a nice, fulfilling ending. And if you're familiar with the Chronicles of Prydain series, then you might have a hint of what the ending actually is like. Yeah. Honestly, the map from the Chronicles of Prydain, kind of reminds me of this map too. Anyway, it does make you wonder, did Tad Williams read the Chronicles of Prydain series when he was younger and then just like, okay, he just borrowed bits and pieces from it? Or did he borrow bits and pieces from The Lord of the Rings? It's hard to say when, a lot of these stories are very influential and they affect a lot of the books that come afterwards. I admit, I am very tempted to include some Wild Hunt style evil riders. Oh wait, I already have. In my books. There's at least 2 that have shown up so far. There's not a group of writers, but there is 2 that have shown up on my books so far. So you'd have to look for them, but they're there. Okay. Now, some people have been like, oh, well, what star rating would you give these? And honestly, I don't like star ratings. I've reached a point in my life where it's like, you know what, these are subjective. You either like them or you don't like them. And in my case, I really, really like them. And I don't have a lot to complain about when it comes to these books either. So I don't believe in giving star ratings because somebody else who reviews these books might have like very different complaints, okay? Or lots of complaints. Or, maybe they'll be like me and have like basically almost no complaints at all. By the end of the books, I loved the characters. It's something that I just enjoyed. So I was, by the end of the book 2, I was like, okay, I gotta get book 3 and 4. I gotta get book 3 and 4. Where it was by that point, it was like crack cocaine. I had to, where are they? I need to go get them. And then I ended up, I think I ordered one from Amazon, and they ordered the other one from a third-party seller on Amazon called Thrift Books, which I think is how I got this one as well. Yes, I got that one from Thrift Books as well. And then I think this one I bought straight from the Indigo or something like that. I don't remember. It's been a while. But yes, this is a definite recommend for the whole series. And you know what? There's more books set in the same world. Not necessarily featuring the exact same characters, because like they'll either be older or whatever. But Tad Williams has other books. Now, I have read some of his other books, not these ones, because this is not all of his books, honestly. Let's see if there's a better list in this one. I guess these are the ones that they're really like pushing as far as these ones go. But there are newer ones that are part of the Austin Ard world. All 4 of these books are part of the Austin Ard world, and there are more books from that world as far as that goes. And I am definitely curious about getting some more of those books. It's just the problem of like, I'm going to take a break from reading these books, much in the same way that I have taken a break from reading the Witcher series. Partially to let the TV series, let the TV series catch up a bit, and then I'll, continue reading the Witcher books. But in this case, I've basically decided like, okay, I will read these 4 books, then take a break, and then in the future, I will read more of Tad Williams' books at some point. But I have other books, so many other books I need to be reading, including the Bard series by Keith Taylor, I think is his name. I'm currently on book 2 of that, so that will be coming as a book review soon enough. And I have lots of other books that I've also been reading. I don't read just one book at a time. That's the other thing. Right now I'm also reading Elfstones of Shannara and a bunch of other books. Yes, I don't read just one book at a time. I read many different books at roughly the same time, and then depending on my mood, I pick which one I want to focus on. Okay, so if I'm like in the mood that I want like something that's like more short stories, I might read a series that's like, you know, anthologies. If I want something that's a bit low, you know, more grittier, or something that has longer chapters or shorter chapters, then I'm gonna pick appropriately. Or maybe I just become addicted to one series and I decide I'm gonna read that series and finish it, and then do all the book reviews at once. Honestly, now that I've done these, I'm not sure I'm ever going to read them again. So I'm kind of curious, do I keep the books or should I sell them? In which case, I'd be tempted to sell all of these books as a set and say, whoever's buying them, here you go, here's your set. I'm just giving you the whole series. Now, I don't usually sell books online on like eBay or Amazon or things like that, but you know what? I theoretically could, I suppose. If somebody made me an offer, yeah, for the whole set, I would at least consider it. Anyway, I'm Charles Moffat. Do go check out my books at amazon.com/author/Moffat. Moffat is spelled Moffat. And you can go find my books, which are not as big as these. You know, I haven't reached the point where I'm writing these like 800-page gigantic behemoths, but I have other stuff that people may enjoy, which are significantly shorter or maybe half the size. Yeah. Some books that, you know, like 300 to 400 pages, which I consider to be a more reasonable size. If it was me, I would have never made this a 4-book series in the first place. I would have cut this thing into like 8 books. This would be a 8-book series, or maybe even a 9-book series, depending on how you cut it. But yeah, I'm Charles Moffat. Please don't forget to subscribe and like and all that good stuff. And you will be seeing more book reviews in the near future. Okay, bye-bye.